Embroidering a custom greeting card is quick and easy. Paper is widely available and inexpensive. The trick is stitching on it without creating cut work. Yes, there are many designs digitized for greeting cards, but what if you could make one with your own designs that you may already have? You can if you properly prepare your cards. With denser designs, and that means either they have shorter stitches or more closely spaced rows of stitches, such as frills or satins, or probably some of both, simply fusing a piece of fabric over the greeting card can solve the problem. So here, not only does the fabric stabilize the paper, enabling it to support more stitches, it can add color and interest to your project. In this video, we'll use some simple techniques to create a greeting card design in software. Now, I'm using Hatch, but these steps are pretty simple, and you should be able to duplicate them in other software you may have. We'll start out easy, then I'll show you some other ways to embellish your card if you're more skilled and you have software that's capable. So before we make our own, let's discuss how one is built. So here I have an outline, and this outline is going to be stitched right on my hoop stabilizer, and this is going to tell me where I need to place my greeting card, because otherwise this stuff won't line up properly. The next part I have is this, and right now I have a motif on there, but it could just be a straight stitch. And what I'm using this for is to attach my greeting card to my stabilizer. So you really don't need that if you can otherwise stick it to your stabilizer. I usually stick it to my stabilizer with some kind of adhesive. But I like this border on it because if my adhesive ever comes off from my fabric that's glued to the card, then I'll have this to look nice. It also kind of frames the card. Now I have it stitching right here, right after the placement line. So I'm going to stitch the placement line, stick my card down, stitch this, then I'm going to stitch my design, and here's my design. Let's hide everything else. Hide unselected. And it's just a simple little St. Patrick's Day card. And this design is free on my website. So you can go download that and make your own card. So we'll unhide all. And then I added some lettering. And if I select this, we can see that I have an A icon here. That means these are Hatch letters. And this is one of the included fonts. So this is run freehand. And I've divided it into two parts. Notice how it's nicely curved? It's because I use this tool. And it puts my first line of text arced up here, my second line arced down there, and takes them into two lines. Now, another thing I could have done is I could have this sewn at the last, stop after my lettering, put another piece of fabric or maybe another greeting card or something on the back, because the back is going to look like, well, the back of embroidery, and it doesn't look good. So by moving that down here, I could attach my fabric or my other piece of fabric under the bottom, on the bottom of the hoop, and then this line would sew it. I'm going to undo that. So let's see how we would do that. So here I have a blank design, and it's got a 130 by 180 hoop. That's your 5 by 7 hoop. And I'm going to make my greeting card. You have to measure your greeting cards first. There seem to be a couple sizes. And the ones I'm using are 4.5 inches by 6.5 inches. So I'm going to go to the Digitize Toolbox, create a rectangle, just make a little rectangle like that, press Enter, and it's got weird stitches on it. But we're going to change that to an outline. And I need to resize it. So I want to make sure that my lock is unlocked so that I can put in a disproportional value. And I'm going to type in 4.5 inches by 6.5 inches. And notice that this says millimeters. Oops, 6.5. Notice that this says millimeters. In Hatch, I can tell it I want to use inches, and it'll do that instead. And I want to center it, so I'll just click the center button. This is Hatch 3. If you have an older version of Hatch, then you can just type in 00 up there, and it'll move it to the center. So there's my placement line. Now I want to be able to have the machine stop afterwards, and I could program in a color change, but I'm going to sew this on my commercial machine, and it recognizes applique stops. So I'm going to change this to an applique. I'll just go to the applique toolbox and say convert to applique. And I don't need some of these features on here. So I'm going to select the object, and on the object properties tab, on the applique tab, I'm going to turn off my tack down, none. I'm also going to do none on the cover stitch. And I'm also going to make this longer. So we could do 3.5. Press enter, and there we have that. So there's my placement. Now I want to do the tack down stitch. And why didn't I use this tack down stitch? I want a decorative stitch, and I want to be able to manipulate it separately. So we'll go to the Create Layouts toolbox. I have my object selected. I'll go to Create Layouts and Offsets. I'm going to uncheck Object Outlines and do Offset Outlines. And I want an offset of -2, and I really don't know where I want that. So I'm just going to put in several of them. I'll do 5 of them. And it can be, I can pick a stitch type. I'll leave it at triple run, and we're okay. So there we have those. This one is definitely too close. And if I was just doing a run stitch, that one might be fine, but I might want to do a motif. So let's do that motif that I had on the St. Patrick's Day card. So all I have to do is go over here to the Object Properties docker, click Motif, and I'll go to Single Motifs. We'll pull that off so we can see it easier. And I think there's some kind of leaf motif. Yep. So that's the one I used on the St. Patrick's Day card. So we'll select that one. I'll close that. And now I'll just delete these other ones. And that looks pretty good. What if you don't have a fancy stitch like this? Doesn't matter. I did some of them with a triple run. And when doing the triple run, I changed it to a longer stitch type. So now I'm ready to insert my design. So I'll click Insert Design, navigate to where my design is, double click it, and there it is. Now it's a little big, but this one was created in Hatch, so I can resize it. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and just resize it a teeny bit like that, maybe a little bit more. Now if you don't have Hatch, and this does include an EMB file if you do have Hatch, then you're going to have a stitch file, like PES, DST, something like that. And in that case, it might not resize as nicely as when you have an object file like this. Now at this point, we could be done, but most cards have lettering, right? So we can add some lettering. I'll go to the Lettering and Monogramming toolbox, click on Lettering, and I'll type, "Have a lucky day." Select that, and I'll pick a font. I'm going to use Run Freehand. Maybe make it a little bit bigger. Let's try 12 millimeters. And I'm going to use this again. And when I select that, I have to define a circle. I'm just going to drag out a circle like that. Press Enter. There we have our lettering. Let's look at a few other cards here. Here is a doggy birthday card. There's a little group of us in our neighborhood, and we walk our dogs together, and we also go out on our birthdays. So this is a little card I've made for when someone has a birthday, and I can just make a little card, and then I can write a greeting on the inside. Now you can also write a greeting with your lettering. So here's a Mother's Day card, the inside of the Mother's Day card, and I use this nice little heart motif for the border here. Here's the front of the card, pretty intense. You definitely need fabric to support this kind of design because these are back stitches. See how it kind of zigzags? If we go back to our St. Patrick's Day design, it is run stitches. So it's better suited to greeting cards. Here's another little design I did. It has a flower motif border, and it's an Easter egg design. And this is the design, but I added this egg shape back here. I had the spiral fill on here, and I'm thinking I'm going to play with Mylar behind this. So I'll put some fabric down, and I'll put some Mylar down, and then I'll stitch my design, just this part, after I stitch this part. and then see if that works. Here we have a Halloween card. Now, if we look at these letters, notice that they aren't letters. We didn't see that little A icon. Remember, over here, we have an A icon. This tells us we have hatch lettering. This is not hatch lettering. These are just stitch objects. And this was created with a TrueType font. This design also has lettering that's not lettering anymore. This one was created from a hatch font. So let's see how we might do that. So yes, you can just type in a font and use that, but if you have a little more skill, you can do some fancier things. So for example, this is a satin stitch font. Most fonts are satin stitch. This is satin stitch too, but these two have satin fills. This one is a satin outline. We'll get to that in a minute. But we can't just take this lettering and say, I want that to be a run and have a single run right down the middle. It just doesn't work that way. But we can put outlines on it, just like we did that offset outline for when we created our tack down stitch. So we'll go back to create layouts and offsets. And this time I'll do an outline. I'll uncheck that and maybe make that a triple run too. Click OK. And if I hide that, hide selected, you can see what I have. Now if I select this one, you can see that it's BookScript, and it's one of the included fonts in Hatch. This one, if I select it, this one is a TrueType font. So TrueType fonts are not embroidery fonts. Your TrueType fonts will be whatever you have installed in your system. These with the little red zigzaggy thing, these are embroidery fonts. So these have been digitized for embroidery. The TrueType fonts, Hatch puts stitches on them, and some fonts work better than others. But what if we want to outline that one? We can do the exact same thing. Create outlines and offsets. All my settings are still there. I'll click OK. Go over here, and if I hide that, hide selected, I have outlines again. Now remember I said this was a satin fill. These were satin outlines. If I select this font, can you see how we have 4 tabs up here? This is what we call a CJ font, a closest join. So it's a flexible font, and depending on what letters come before and after, it will change where it connects. This one doesn't have those. It's because this is an as digitized font. So it's going to connect wherever its connectors were built in. I can still resize it. It'll still recalculate. It's just that it's not going to do closest join. And the reason that this one had to be done that way is because these are satin outlines. What I mean by that is if we break it apart, I have it selected. I'll go to the Edit Objects toolbox, and I'll click Break Apart. Well, first of all, let's go back here so you can see what's going on. So there's my line. I'll do Break Apart. Now I have letters. So I'll select that. The shortcut for Break Apart is Control-K. If I press Control-K again, look what happens. Now I have Hatch objects. So this is no longer lettering as far as Hatch is concerned. It's just a bunch of objects that look like letters. So actually I'm going to come down here, I'll select this, and just make it a different color. And then we'll go over here and I'll select all of those, and I'm going to change it from whatever it is to a single run. Now we have outlines. How cool is that? Well, it looks cool till we turn off True View. And see all these little triangles? These are trims. So the little circle thing is where it enters. The triangle is where it exits and it trims. But we can make that more efficient. So I'm going to drag a selection around that. Hopefully I got all the pieces. And I'm going to branch it. So I'll click Branching. And now Hatch is telling me enter an entry point. And I'm going to say I want to start there. And now it says enter an exit point. And I'll click again. And look, we got rid of some trims. I'll do the same thing here. Branching. And notice when I have a branching, I is a shortcut. So now I want to come in here, come out here. I'll select this one, I, in, out, I, in, out. And what I'm doing for my in and out points is I'm selecting the point that's closest to the next letter. I, in, and here we have an issue. It's going to be a gap either way. So I'll just click down there. And then probably what I'll do is I'll move these letters a little closer together. Well, they aren't letters anymore, but you get the idea. So you're going to have to do that on each letter. I'll turn on TrueView. Everything looks great in TrueView, right? So if we go back to this card, that's the font I used here. Now to get it to arc like this, you need to do all of that beforehand. So when you create your letters, like we did on this one, and I clicked down here to do that, you're going to do all of your adjustments first, and then you'll do the outline business. Because once you've broken it apart, and you no longer have one of these lettering objects, you can't do any of this stuff anymore. You can move them manually. You can't do it automatically. So now let's suppose that you're going to do a whole bunch of greeting cards and you want to have sort of a template you can start with. So let's select these. I'll copy, create a new document, paste, and I'll set this back to something a little more neutral, maybe a triple run, and we'll set a stitch length of 3.5. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a save as template. Save as template. It automatically opens my templates folder. You can see I have a bunch of templates. And I'll just save it. Now I don't want to save it over this one because this is my default template. And I'll give it a name. And I already have it. It's right there. So if I wanted to save over that, I just click it and then click save, but I'm going to click cancel. So now when I want to create a new greeting card, I can always go up here to my starter file, new from template, find my template in the list, and it's selected there, and I'll click OK. There's my new file, all ready to make a greeting card. So yeah, you can be real basic just by creating a couple rectangles here. And if you don't want to make this an applique, just make it a different color. And on your single needle machine, it's going to stop anyway. And then you just place your card down and go ahead and sew. By adding fabric to the front of your greeting card, you can make it much more stable and you can put just about any design on there you want to. A personalized, customized greeting card this way is so appreciated.